Hi, this is Alfred's Adult Piano Course, Lesson Book Level 1. This is video 18, covering page 23 in our book, the song Mary Ann. In Lesson 17, we learned how to play the C chord in the right hand and the G7 chord in the right hand. Okay, so at this point, you should be very familiar with those chords and able to play them fairly decently. You're going to be applying that in the piece Mary Ann. If you look at the piece of music before we get started, notice that the right hand only plays those chords in the last measure of every line. So at the top line, the first three measures of the right hand, you have whole rests. Whole rest meaning you're resting for 4 counts, which is the entire measure. So only your left hand's playing. When you get to the 4th measure, your right hand plays 3 G7 chords. And notice the first 2 are quarter notes and the last one's a half note. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll also notice a dynamic marking there above those G7 chords. There's a P. P is Italian for piano, which means soft. This is not the easiest thing to do, soft. Because again, you want to focus on evenness. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, it's easier to play loud than soft. It takes quite a bit more control to play something soft. So if that's the case, play it loud first. Make sure it's very solid, very even, very clear. Then work on getting a little bit quieter and softer. But if you go to the piece and start playing these chords soft first, and this happens, it's uneven, practice it loud. Okay, going down to the second line, the right hand plays 3 C chords at the end of that line. Notice it's the exact same rhythm, 2 quarter notes and a half note. Going down to the 3rd line, it's just like the first line. You've got your G7 chord at the end of that line. And the last line of the piece back to the C chord. So the right hand doesn't really do a whole lot in this piece. That being said, it's still challenging, again, because these chords are going to be soft. So the melody is in your left hand. Let's look at the left hand at the beginning. Notice it's marked mezzo forte, louder than the piano, so bringing our melody out in volume. Starting with E with your 3rd finger, a skip up to G, and then all the way down to C. Skip back up to E. Now 3rd measure, E again, down to D, skip up to F. Now, what happens here in the 3rd and 4th measure in the left hand is you have a tie. The F comes in on the 3rd measure on beat 3. You hold it on 4, and you keep holding it into the next measure. That's when the right hand comes in with the G7 chord. So starting on the 3rd measure, the hands together are gonna sound like this. So once you hit that F in the left hand, just keep it held down and be focused on the chords in the right hand. So let's play the entire first line now. And I'm going to go ahead and count as I do this this second time through. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So a lot of times it's good to just go through the whole piece and learn one hand at a time, but I think you can put the hands together because, again, when the right hand plays, the left hand's not really doing anything complicated. It's just holding. Before you go on to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th line, just make sure you're comfortable with these skips in the left hand. It jumps around a lot, again, from E to G all the way down to C and back to E. Now, one way to look at it is those notes that you're playing in the first 2 measures were all notes of the C major chord. So that might help navigate a little bit. But once you get to the third measure, then you incorporate the D on beat 2 and the F on beat 3 and 4. All right, going down to the second line, starting with the left hand, we have our fourth finger on D, skip up to F, play F again. Now this is tricky. Stretch your fifth finger down to B, and your fourth finger, mine actually got off a little bit, but your fourth finger, you need to stretch it to D. Okay, and then your next measure, D, C, E. Now let's do that one more time. Back at the beginning of that line, fourth finger on D, up to F, F again, stretch your pinky down to B. Now if your fourth finger can't hold that stretch, that's okay. Just bring it back to the D and lift the pinky. And then the third measure, D, C, E. And then the right hand comes in on the C chord. Okay, let's put this line together now. I'll count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, going on to the third line. The interesting thing about the third line is it's pretty much the same thing as the first line. The only difference is the rhythm is split. So what I mean by that is on your first line, the very first note in the left hand, you had an E half note. Okay? But on the third line, you have the E split into 2 quarter notes. Then you went to a G on that first line. You do the same thing on the third line, but it's split into quarter notes. So instead of an E half note to a G half note, you have E quarter notes to G quarter notes. Second measure goes down to C. And just like the second measure on the first line, you go to E, but it's 2 quarter notes. And then the third measure is the exact same thing. E, D, F, and then your G7 chord, just like the first line. So the notes and the fingering is all the exact same thing as the first line. It's just instead of some half notes in the left hand, you have quarter notes. And while I'm thinking about it, don't do what I did. I had my right hand in my lap. You want to keep your right hand there so you don't get to the chord too late. All right, let me play that third line for you, counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looking at the fourth line, it's almost identical to the second line. The first 2 measures of the fourth line and the first 2 measures of the second line in the left hand are the exact same thing, starting with 4 on D, 2 Fs, stretching down to that B with your fifth finger, getting that fourth finger over to D, and the third measure starts out the same as it does in the second line with D, C, but instead of going up to E, it stays on C for the end of the song, and then our right hand's the same, the C chord. So once you've learned the first and second line, you've pretty much learned the third and fourth line. Okay, so once you get comfortable with the whole piece, it's going to go moderately fast. It is a calypso tune, and it's got some energy, so you definitely want to spend some extra time getting it up to tempo. So I'm going to play it all the way through for you now, up to tempo. So it really is a good workout for the left hand, and again, working those stretches down to that B and stretching that fifth finger to the fourth finger on D. So really good workout for the left hand. And it's a really good exercise for your right hand as well, playing these chords. how even and clear you can make them at the soft volume. All right, so spend some time on this piece. It may take a little while, but that's okay. The pieces are getting more challenging, and as they get more challenging, it's only natural to be spending more time on them.